It's 5 o'clock. I'll call the budget committee meeting for May 20th. 2026. It's 5 p.m. to order. And welcome budget committee members. We're everyone present, but one is running a little late and I'm not sure about the other two.
Awesome.
Oh, Amanda's on Zoom, so I don't think Jenna's going to make it. Jason's running a few minutes late, and welcome Mike Reddick and Kevin Hill to
Reddick.
Called him Mike Reddick.
oh,
Been that long, huh?
Reynolds and
Yeah,
Huh?
right? You think.
you know, I'm not mad at him today. Mike Reynolds, Kevin Hill and Jason Reddick's running late. So with 12 members, I'll turn it over to Kevin, let him explain the quorum requirements and makeup of the budget committee.
Okay, thanks, Mike. How about this information is printed inside the budget document too? And if you are wondering, we had previously distributed a green version that was without the bond. The yellow version is with the bond, and so we'll go over those changes later. But if you're just wondering about the difference is the bond. And so if you go inside, it's actually down in the bottom right hand corner, there are page numbers. There's the inside the front cover, budget contents, and then budget committee. And at the bottom of that, so it's page number 1 in here, talks about the makeup of the budget committee. The key part of this is that the board itself could be the budget committee, but then you can have one additional community member for every board member. And so potentially Sweet Home could have a budget committee of up to 18 people. So with the 9 board members and the 3 volunteer committee member or community members, we have 12. And following what state law says, that means then to conduct business, anything needs 7 votes. And so even though we do have a quorum here, if there was ever a divided vote, you need 7 to pass. And so that's the important number to remember as we go forward.
Thank you, Kevin. Anything you want to add?
I'm good. I'll have some more speaking coming up later.
Yeah.
Now we'll do the election of the budget committee officers. We'll do the chairman first, and I'm open to any motions.
I nominate Dale for chairman.
I'll decline.
Yeah.
I nominate Mike Reynolds.
I'll second. What can I say? I'm not a school board.
You can second it.
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a nomination by Dale and second by Kevin for Mike Reynolds to be the chair. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Sorry, nay.
You're a nay? Is a nay. Now we'll do the election.
Do you need a secretary?
Motion passes. Did you get her vote? Okay, so motion passes. Next we'll do the election of the secretary for this budget committee.
I move we, Jason Reddick is the secretary.
And I nominate Rachel Meader.
We'll do the motion that was on the floor first, right? So there's been a nomination of Jason by Dale. Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion dies. So there's been a motion on the table by Mary to nominate Rachel. I hesitate purposefully. As secretary, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any? And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Thanks.
Well, we just elected Mike and Rachel. Mike is the chair, Rachel was the secretary.
Mike and Mike.
All right, thank you guys. It says next is to present the budget message, and I guess it says Terry.
Here we go. Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to start off by thanking Sweet Home voters for passing our bond measure. So I understand that the largest one in the state when combined with the bond itself and the 12.25 million comes along with that 2.5 million. This investment will allow the district to improve school safety, update facilities, and strengthen career preparation opportunities for home students. While we are very excited about the bond, this year's budget message is primarily about the district's operating budget. Statewide school districts are facing a challenging financial environment. Daily, there are news reports regarding multi-million-dollar shortfalls, layoffs, furlough days, and program reductions. I'm encouraged to report that Sweet Home's 2026-2027 budget does not include cuts like those occurring elsewhere. Here are some of the steps we are taking to help avoid these outcomes. First, we remain committed to operating with a lean administrative structure. Sweet Home does not maintain some of the additional administrative positions or departments found in districts of similar or slightly larger size. For example, we do not have an assistant superintendent, and existing staff cover multiple areas of responsibility. This allows the district to operate without separate human resources, technology, communications, or executive operations directors. We also do not maintain separate DEI, social justice, or inclusion department as part of our administrative structure. We have not contracted out for project management services. By limiting administrative overhead, we're able to direct more resources toward schools, classrooms, and services for our students. Second, we're working diligently to maximize non-tax revenue sources. One example is investment earnings. During the 2024-2025 fiscal year, Sweet Home generated more investment earnings on a per student basis than most other school districts in the state. This reflects the district's ongoing effort to manage available resources carefully, so we can direct more resources to our students and schools. Third, we continue to budget conservatively and plan beyond a single fiscal year. We avoid using temporary resources to create permanent obligations. We review staffing, programs, and operating costs on an ongoing basis and have tried to make gradual adjustments before financial challenges become more disruptive. As a result, the 2026-2027 budget is largely a status quo budget. However, it is important to be clear that Sweet Home is not immune from the same financial pressures affecting districts across Oregon. The gap between state funding and rising operational costs continues to grow. Along with maintaining financial stability, our focus remains on helping students succeed. Status quo budget does not mean the district is standing still. It means we are working to protect core programs while continuing to improve the support and opportunities available to students. The district will continue focusing on early literacy, academic intervention, attendance, and career-connected learning. These areas are important because they directly affect whether students are prepared for the next grade level, graduate on time, and leave sweet home schools ready for college, career training, employment, military service, or other post-secondary opportunities. We also recognize that students and families may need different pathways to stay engaged and successful in school. We are strongly considering for the upcoming school year an online learning option for students. While we believe the most complete educational experience happens in the classroom, where students benefit from direct instruction, relationship with staff, daily interaction with their peers, this new program will provide families with another educational option while continuing to keep students connected to Sweet Home Schools. Please note that we occasionally receive inquiries about the total budget amount. It is important to recognize that the actual spending each year is typically well below total amount budgeted. The adopted budget establishes the district's legal spending authority and sets an absolute spending limit for each fund and major function. Our financial goal is to remain well within the overall budgeted spending limits each year. In addition, the voter approved bond increases the total budget amount because bond proceeds and related capital project expenditures must be included in the budget. I encourage you to review the accompanying budget summary for additional information. We also occasionally receive questions about individual line items within the budget. Full budget document includes the level of detail so readers can see what makes up totals for each of the fund and major function. This information is provided for clarity and general understanding. However, the legally adopted budget is established at the fund and major function level, not at each individual line item. Thank you for the opportunity to work for our students. It's a pleasure to serve and a great day to be in Sweet Home. Thank you.
Any questions for Terry on his message?
I have a quick question. So on the first one, the first statement, we're talking about the new online. It says among our new offerings for the upcoming school year will be an online learning option, but then it changed to we're strongly considering. Was that a financial decision or what caused the change?
We need to be agile and respond to parent requests. You know, increasingly, we're seeing folks that are leaving brick and mortar and going into online options. And so, you know, I'm not going to say they're equal because I don't believe they are. I think teachers in front of students in a classroom with the interactions and all is the best way to go. However, if students continue or families continue to choose online, then instead of them going to places far flung across the state, we should have an option for them here.
So just to summarize, you previously were going to offer an online, but then it's going to be more responsive.
No, we're still considering doing.
Considering it. I'm sorry, just because the first one says among our new offerings, it sounded like we were.
Yeah, this is the yellow one is the updated.
I know.
Speaking
I
to.
was just asking a
Okay.
clarifying question, why we went from doing it to
Yeah.
proposing.
Yep.
And you're saying the proposing is just, we're gonna respond to family requests. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question on the online stuff? So interesting, I was just reading an article this morning that Grants Pass was having, it was a parent who posted it saying that Grants Pass was not allowing her child to go on online because of a certain, what's the word I'm looking for?
Give us a clue. Was it the 3% rule that was in place a number of years ago?
Maybe, let me pull it up real quick, sorry. Attendance. So the district would not allow it because the attendance in the school was different. And if it was like below. Has reached 5.21%. Your student is not approved for enrolling in a virtual public charter school. So would that be something that we would hold parents accountable to? Like if we have so many people that are going online, we would deny?
We can, you operate within percentages, just like transfers. Right now, there are transfer caps as well. But this isn't something we're wanting to have a ton of. But we have had families this year ask, temporary medical, whatever the reason is, we would like a more short-term option to go online.
Okay.
We don't have that. When we, as a district, came out of COVID, we had online at that time. We chose not to continue with that because we wanted the kids to come back. That was a valid concern because all across the country, a lot of students did. And so now that we've had enough time past that, things largely become more normalized as far as, all the school activities and everything that's going on. But there is a smaller percentage of parents that continue to look for options. In our setting, it's mostly been shorter term, medical, family reasons, things like that. So it just makes sense that we have an option for them.
And by us providing that option, it counts towards our enrollment. Whereas if they go the other route, it counts towards somebody else's.
That's it exactly. So if someone that lives in Sweet Home attends an online school, I'm not gonna name any, but somewhere in a completely different community, those dollars will leave our community and follow to the enrolling district. And so this is another way to keep dollars here, keep the students engaged. We see a number of folks, even within the online, around junior high, starting to look towards some of the sports programs and things that they can get into our district. This would be a bridge to keep them in our district and then progress through it. If they want to join in junior high or what have you, they could.
So that would still count towards our enrollment.
Correct. Yeah. Good question, Bill.
So Terry, in the past, we've used programs like that for credit recovery, helping those kids get to the finish line. Is that gonna be an option as a part of this? Or is that something that you can't really predict at this point?
We still have some options that we use in like a tutoring situation where a student isn't being successful in school and within the setting, but that's very restrictive.
So if some people do respond to this and decide they want to do online, does this budget reflect the need for any staffing or whatever might be needed for that?
Do you want me to take that? We have included staff person in this budget that would be a district employee helping oversee the program. We have included in the budget money to both revenue coming in for the students participating in this, plus the cost of the curriculum for students participating in the program.
So Mike, that was a great follow-up question. I have a question and maybe I'm just confused. So we get money if they're enrolled in our online school, but then we spend that money for the teacher, for the curriculum. So is it actually, it's not actually a dollar gain for us, correct?
Actually, it is because right now, students that are attending online somewhere else, they're living here, all of that money is going elsewhere.
Right.
If there's an option here and they choose to attend here, then that's going to be that'll be money coming in.
But it's,
instead of.
so we don't spend all of the money the state gives us for each student then, is what you're saying.
We don't get any money for the students that are.
Right, but I'm saying when, if I say this easy number, 10,000. If I chose to go online, the school district gets money, but they don't actually spend all that 10,000 on.
I think the easiest way is keep in mind, school districts, I'm probably gonna get into some accounting terms. But operating a school district, you have a lot of fixed costs that are built in. I'll use transportation, for example. Unless we get to that number where we need to add a bus route, we can transport more kids, and then if we have a full bus, that cost per student goes down. Same thing at a school in a classroom. And so who we would be contracting with, their cost is less for that student that we would be paying than what we get from the state, because state payment recognizes that you have to cover the fixed costs as well.
That makes sense. I guess that's what I was trying to wrap my mind around. Was that,
And so what this would do is help us
right,
cover those fixed costs.
Okay.
I had our tennis coach say we need to resurface the tennis courts today. That money has to come from somewhere, and so it's those types of things.
Okay, and then I had a second part to that. What would make this, other than the money side, which I totally get, what would make this program better than one of those other programs that we won't mention? I mean, there's a lot of programs out there that you can go into if you want to go online, and it doesn't matter where you're at in the state, so why would,
incentivize?
yeah, I guess.
All of the connections that are here, the wraparound services that we have, the counselors that we have, special education, co-curricular activities, all of those things that our families and students benefit from being here in our community and attending school here.
So if you're doing the online through our district, you can have access to the counselors and, okay, all right,
All of that,
Yeah,
all of the
it's just-
services.
Just a different modality.
sure, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, Kevin, it sounds like there's some questions already been presented to you.
Yes, we've already received some questions, and Dale, thank you for these in the little 4-page booklet here. You open it to the inside. How about I'll just kind of go through these, read it. Dale, I don't think you've seen these yet, so if you have follow-up, or if any of the committee members, board members have follow-up, please ask. But first question dealt with licensed extra duty and what that covers. And just to give you some background, you'll see throughout the budget document, licensed extra duty and classified extra duty. The majority of extra duty is for coaching stipends and also extracurricular activity stipends. Like, say if we have a play, the person, the staff member helping with that typically gets a stipend. The way we break it down, if you are a certified teacher, when we pay and payroll, we'll charge that to licensed extra duty. If you are not a teacher, and so this would be, say that if you're a community member that's helping coach, or a classified staff member helping coach, that gets charged to classified extra duty. And so when you look at in the columns that show past year spending, you'll oftentimes see some for license, some for classified. When I build the budget, I don't take the time to guesstimate, will the football coach continue to be a licensed staff member? Will it be a class, or the assistant football coach, any of that? I put all of that just into licensed. And then what will happen is during the year, depending on who is filling those positions, they'll be charged either licensed or classified. And so the bulk of what you're seeing for licensed extra duty is what we have projected for coaching stipends and extracurricular activity stipends. There is some extra work, like sometimes if we have a teacher that does curriculum work, they get paid extra, and that is oftentimes charged as licensed extra duty too. But that's what makes up that line item.
Is it also if they cover for another teacher, like a sick day or something?
Typically,
Is that
that would not be.
Okay.
And really the most of it, the largest portion of it is actually for coaches. When you take all of our coaches together, we are spending quite a bit per year on coaching stipends.
and the licensed extra duty is a higher rate than the classified?
No, in fact, it's
Same rate?
if you are, I'm trying to, think of a sport, but, I'll just pick like the golf coach right now does not teach for the district, but we do pay more, I believe after 3 years, you get a bump up, but it doesn't matter if you are a normal district employee or a community member, you're paid off of that same coaching stipend schedule.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, next question. Are we doing away with talented and gifted programs? I noticed that we had no FTE allotted to it. And I'm going to actually start with the second paragraph in here first, because I think the key thing is, why was there no FTE allotted for it? And what it is last year, we had a staff member who oversees TAG, and we had charged a portion of her salary to TAG. She's a counselor. This year, we have her just fully charged to counseling. And so when you look in there, you see that drop off, but she's still with us, still doing the same. Her salary is being charged to counseling. And just to talk about our TAG program, it's a good time to do it. If you notice the picture there of the students, that was from earlier this month. OMSI came down. What was nice is our staff applied for a grant through the Oregon Community Foundation, and it was Shintimony that provided it to pay for OMSI to come down. We bused the TAG kids to the Boys and Girls Club during the day from all the schools. You can kind of see them there. They had, like, as I understand it, batteries, motors, different things. They assembled them. They were in these cups with like a marker. You could put it down on paper, and then it would like go around and make artwork and different things. And from what I've heard, it was definitely enjoyable, and hopefully they learned some science, technology, engineering, math while they were doing it.
Good. As a pioneer of the first TAG program in the district, I'm glad to see it still continuing.
Yeah, good. Okay. 3, we're on the home stretch now. Does conference charges, like say for OSBA for the board, fall under general fund, Board of Education, other non-instructional, professional and technical services? This is on, if you want to see it, I believe it's page 24. If you're looking down in the bottom right-hand corner of the budget document, it actually, that we would code that to travel. I was trying to think maybe, I looked at that line item and was trying to think maybe what you were looking at. And back in 23-24, other non-instructional, professional, technical, it was for that, it was on the high side for our spending that year. It was just over $13,000. I was thinking maybe that's caught your eye. And what that was for is we hired outside, we had a couple of sensitive employee related investigations that we had done, and we paid someone, an outside investigator, to come in and help us with those. And that's why that line item was higher that year. Okay.
Yeah.
And then this is one of those where, I'm glad I'm in Sweet Home and not in some districts where their ending fund balance is a very low percentage. But the question is, how is our planned reserve calculated? Is it a percentage of expected revenue? I think when you say planned reserve, meaning like ending fund balance, like that. And first, just the math equation for it. if you take our beginning fund balance plus our budgeted revenues minus our budgeted expenditures, you get what our planned reserve is. If a lot of times to compare districts of different sizes, because, you know, if you're Portland Public Schools or Beaverton, it could sound like a big number compared to, say, if you're Central Lynn or Monroe. For us, if you take our 2026-2027 planned reserve divided by current year revenue, it works out to 9.1%.
What percentage?
9.1.
May I ask?
We have in the past had times, yeah, where it's been much lower. And our hope would be in this upcoming year that we underspend in total what's budgeted, which would then push that number higher or percentage higher.
Another question, Mary?
Yeah, the planned reserve, is that actual money sitting someplace?
That is actual money then that would carry over to the following year and be our beginning fund balance for the next year. And so, yeah, I would say it's essentially a savings account for into the future. And it's always nice to have a savings account.
It's basically you're operating, if nothing comes in, that's your operating for about a month or so.
And you said that's about 9%.
The projection for June 30th, 2027 would be at 9.1%.
Is that about what we have every year, or is this?
It can definitely vary. Mike was absolutely right. I mean, if you go back, Great Recession, coming out of the Great Recession, it was quite a bit lower, and other times it's been higher. You know, it's one of those where I would say, you know, it's probably increasingly important to have larger reserves given with the uncertainty that's out there.
And part of that's used to fill the gap before we start getting tax money from the state at the beginning of the next year, right?
Correct. It's one of those, you know, we are on accrual accounting. And again, I don't want to get too much into accounting terms, but you know, what happens is for us, you know, our two main sources of funding, one is the state school fund. The other is property tax money that we normally get starting late October into November. You know, one of the things is you want to make sure you have enough cash to be able to pay your bills when the start of the year happens. And so if you happen to be, say, at zero and you received a bill on July 1st that had to be paid, that leaves you in a tough spot. The good thing is we do get our first state payment on July 15th, so we don't have to go a long time without. But it's one of those, I've heard from school districts that are delaying paying utilities and other things. We Central Lynn, if you go back just, I think it was the year before this, they, for a period of time, were having to delay paying some of their bills so they had enough money to meet payroll. And that's not a situation I'd ever like to find myself in.
Yeah, but just thinking about what Terry said, the gap between state funding and rising operational costs continue to grow. So I think that's a very wise thing that we're doing.
So for comparison, what's this year's expected percentage of in fund balance?
We actually, for this year right now, I think we're on track to be in the 20% range. So and I should say too, part of that is somewhat strategic because, you know, I'll say I was hopeful the bond would pass. And one of the things that we'll need to do is get an updated credit rating before we issue bonds. And the better the credit rating is, the lower our interest costs, which benefits us since Sweet Home directly. And one of the key things they look at is what our ending fund balance is. So, you know, whatever we can do to save will hopefully help us as a community going forward.
Okay, any other questions?
Questions in general or just questions about preschool?
Either one.
Oh, yeah.
So, looking over the, birds. It's just striking to see just within a few years that birds across the board seems to have doubled.
It's gonna go up again.
And that's what I was going to ask. Do we know if it's going to continue to go up and at what percentage and are we covered?
For this year and next year, every payroll dollar that we are paying out, another 30 cents is going to PERS right now for us. And that is actually below a lot of school districts. And so as far as looking ahead, part of me wants to be optimistic. I haven't looked to see what the stock market did today, but you look over the past year and a half and it's had a pretty good run. And if PERS had invested the bulk of its portfolio in a low cost index S&P 500 fund, I think we would be in good shape. The challenge is PERS has invested a significant portion of its portfolio in other investments, which recently have underperformed the market. They would say that if you go back far enough, private equity and other investments have been a good deal. But if you look at recent history, if you could just, if I could turn back time for 5 years, and if they could have just put their money into a low cost S&P 500 index fund, laid off all of the high price people that manage their investments, probably as a state, we would be in much better shape. So what's going to be interesting is to see when they set the rates for the next biennium, how the investment portfolio has done. And based on that, we'll see what our rates are. As a district, we have taken steps where possible to try to buy down PERS. A couple of times, PERS has encouraged districts to make deposits into side accounts, and they've given a 25% match if you do that. Both times we've taken advantage of that, which will help us going forward. But with that said, PERS, it just comes back. I mean, when you think 30 cents on the dollar, and the reason for that, it's not that it's going to current employees, it's because of the size of the deficit from promises paid years ago to people that PERS has to fulfill. Not enough money was set aside decades ago. And so right now we're having to make up that shortfall. And, that's a sizable chunk of our budget that you'd like to think could be available on supporting kids today, but instead we're trying to dig out of the hole from decades ago.
So just to clarify, as a common man, $1 for every dollar that we get, 30 cents is going back to.
Right now, how it is that if you, I guess to make, to use an example, if we have an employee that we're paying $50,000 a year to, we're paying PERS $15,000.
So basically 65,000.
Yes. Yep. Well, and then you get health insurance, FICA, all of that too. So yeah, the cost of an employee that earns $50,000, the cost to the district is significantly higher. But yeah,
And they're paying their side account too. If they're in Osprey.
You can say that for every $50,000 salary, pay 15,000 per, so 30,000 per annum. So on.
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I probably should have used 100,000, but it's not easier. But you got it. You got it.
Any other question?
About the budget overall,
Yeah.
is there anything, I'm
still gonna ask him to talk about that bond part, but any other
Yeah,
questions
just
besides that?
last question, we're just sticking with the status quo. So that I looked through all the numbers and basically everything is pretty much just carried over. Was there anything glaring, anything that you saw from the last budget to this one? That,
You know, the bond is definitely the big change. You know, I'm trying to think it. Overall, in general, you know, it really touches on what Terry talked about in the budget message, where, you know, we are trying to, you know, we're staffing, you know, we're trying to make adjustments largely through attrition, where, you know, if we have, you know, a school that's going to be down in enrollment, you know, try to make those adjustments now rather than, you know, get into a situation where we're facing a fiscal cliff. Trying to be ahead of that, you know, doing that. You know, one of the exciting things that's reflected in this budget is that we just received word recently that we were approved for summer school for elementary literacy summer school. And so, you know, our staff right now is, I think, doing a really good job putting together a really strong program for kids for this summer. So, you know, that's a highlight that's out there. So yeah, I mean, definitely there are lots of positives.
Any other questions?
So, yeah, how did your heart rate rank us?
You know, the good thing is if you go back last year for bus fuel, I actually had budgeted higher. And so that's helped us this year. And so we can kind of continue that into next year. You know, with that said, the question is, you know, I'd say for two areas, energy costs, but also property and liability insurance, which is another one that's going up at double-digit rates. You know, sometimes when you see the actual numbers, you ask yourself, how could they be this high?
Conversation I have every day.
So how's your crystal ball for
Well,
the next year?
What I see. Fuel, gas, diesel, and probably natural gas will drop fairly quickly. But so much more of the energy market is tied to the Middle East, and then with the West Coast walking away from West Coast refinery processes, we're just going to continue to pay higher prices for fuels because of geographically where we are. So there's not an easy way to get it from Texas, that area, the Gulf Coast, into the West Coast at this point. So everything that's being pumped out of the ground in California is being loaded into a ship, shipped to the Middle East, refined, and then shipped back. And so I don't want to sound like doom and gloom here, but I mean, we're going to come back. Energy prices are going to drop again, but how much they drop, I think there's just too many factors tied to that. You're talking, you know, natural gas, because we're pulling that out of the Middle East. The fuel oils and things like that. You know, we're tied more closely with this than some of them are in other parts of the country. So
I mean, the thought.
Tax on top of it.
Well, yeah, that's.
I mean, the thought did cross our mind. Our transportation director, Daryl Bidwell, had approached about buying a used Tahoe for transporting students. And the thought did cross my mind, should we be looking at buying a used electric vehicle instead?
Shouldn't be a need. I mean, how do we generate electricity?
True.
Because they're backing off of hydroelectricity as much as. And so they've got to generate it somehow. And you know, with the influx of data centers and all of that stuff that are taking more and more energy costs, electricity is going to be just as bad. So unless you got a nuclear power generator that you can set here on the site and do that, I don't know.
No, a company to talk to.
Maybe OSU will go over here, you know, there.
Yeah.
So I guess I have a couple questions.
Yep.
So on page 16,
If we get there.
And this is just one of the examples.
Mhm.
Line 340 and 355.
Okay, so travel and printing and binding, okay,
So our actuals are decent amounts, but then for our proposed budget, we have zero.
you know, for travel right there, if I'm looking, so you're looking, we had $432 in 23-24 and $752 in 24-25. You know, there, when you look at the number of line items in this budget document, I'm more focused on at the higher level at the fund major function to make sure that those are gonna be there. I mean,
Yeah.
I every dollar is important,
No, I understand.
but
There's just a handful
Yeah.
of them though that have like on 15, again, travel,
mhm.
our actuals are 19,000, but then we proposed only 2.
On that.
Travel, 340 on page 15.
And high school extracurricular is one too, where sometimes some of those expenses, depending on the type of travel it is, fall under student transportation.
Okay.
And so what typically happens there is we give the schools a budget and they allocate it out. And so for that line item, the high school allocated out the 2,000 from theirs. What we do is if they end up overall, and this includes 1131, which is high school instruction, and 1132, which is extracurricular. What we tell them is, even though you've set the budget for this, if you overspend in travel, that's okay, as long as you maybe underspend in consumable supplies or something else. And so, you know, what I would say on that is, you know, we sometimes in this budget document, there are so many line items that you really do. It's almost the forest and the trees. You can get focused so much on the line items. The key thing is looking at it kind of in totality. But with that said, every dollar matters, and that's why we're showing every line item.
No, I was just like, if
Mhm.
here, 2 years of actuals and then our proposed or adopted is 0.
Yeah, or some of these are coming from school allocations and what they're putting in for that. And then also I'm gonna say that, you know, what we're trying to do is really watch more at the overall level.
So that being said, is that having all these line items a statutory requirement?
No, in fact, all that is required, if you actually turn to the if you go to the inside back cover, you'll have, just because of how this printed, you'll have empty pages, but go to the inside, just
Page 77.
within that, you'll see proposed legally adopted budget. And this is actually what will go to the board in June. This one page is actually, and historically, Mike will, hope you don't mind me saying this, Mike, every year when I give him a budget document, he kind of, and he's kind of judging, is it thicker or thinner, I think.
I did ask him that the other day. It seemed thinner.
To make it really thin, this one page is all that we need. In fact, you know, we had a community member recently that was questioning the individual line items. Well, what the auditors look at is this one page summary here. The reason we provide all of the detail is if we just gave you this one page, probably the question would be, well, where did those amounts come from?
Absolutely.
And so that's why all of the other pages are here, is so you can have an idea of what makes up this. But with that said, it's sometimes easy to then start to really focus. And really, for me, when I'm preparing for the auditors are looking at a variety of different things. Just if we're staying within our budgeted spending is just one of many. But this is the one page here that I focus on because this is what they're looking at. And this is what state law says they have to look at.
Anything else, Richard? Anybody else?
One question, is it going to affect, do we have built into the budget to change over the system? The accounting system according to the state requirements?
We have not budgeted any extra expenditures for that, and I hope that if anything, it just means, you know, I get paid the same regardless of the number of hours I work, and I hope that, you know, when I get around to having to do that, it's just some extra hours. But yeah, it's one of those, the state is mandating that they want more detail, and so it very likely could in future years. I think it's not next year, but the year after, result in an even larger budget document.
My term's up.
You know, I guess my question, I hate to be on my soapbox, but it's, my question would be, at the end of the day, how are we better educating kids with this? And I'm still waiting for that answer, but definitely I'm a good soldier and I will do what ODE tells me to do.
Anything else?
My husband's in the paper industry, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. There is a positive there.
Yeah, you talk about the bond impact.
Sure. If you turn to the back page, this is the same. If you, this is just an excerpt from Fund 400, which, yep, the back page of the handout, I should say, sorry, the white handout. This is an excerpt from Fund 400 that's in the budget document, and I just wanted to talk about what the changes are. Now, first, item number 1, the debt service fund, Fund 300, with the bond passing, there is no change. That's what affects property taxes. Passing the bond has no change on property taxes. It has no change on the debt service fund. What will happen is the bonds that we issue will be structured to be a continuance of the existing bonds, and so that the rate, you know, what we've said all along is the rate will not increase, and that's what we're sticking to. The second part, capital projects fund, though, is what changes. And I have 4 arrows there, and I kind of want to talk about each number with each arrow. The first one is state grant. This is the $12,252,000 grant that Sweet Home is receiving from passing the bond. We showed that as revenue coming in. I'm going to talk about the next line item and then come back to that one. Bond proceeds. We budgeted for $12,252,000. The total bond is $40 million. And so you're probably wondering, why does that not show $40 million? The thought behind that is it's going to take us, the projects will last multiple years. And the thought is there's really no need to borrow the full amount up front and then be paying interest on it when we don't need it yet. And so the reason that $12,252,000 is there is, in order to get the grant, we do have to issue bonds up to the amount of the grant. And so likely, we haven't determined this yet, but likely what we'll do is issue bonds in 2 series. We'll likely have one issue for the $12,252,000 that allows us then to qualify for the matching grant. And then later on, when we need the additional funds, we'll go ahead and issue those. That's not set in stone. One of the things that could change it is if, say, short-term interest rates and long-term rates, normally long-term rates are greater than what, or higher than what short-term rates are. If they were to flatten out, it wouldn't be as big of a deal, because what we would be able to do then is take the bond proceeds and invest them at essentially the same rate as what we're paying out, and then it's a wash. But assuming long-term rates are higher than short-term rates, it would make sense for us to do 2 issuances. So that first issuance is so we can get the grant. The grant, there's one other thing too, to get that money, it's a reimbursement style grant. So we actually have to spend the money. We have to issue the bonds and then spend the money, and then they'll reimburse us for it. And so that leads then down to the third arrow. I'm budgeting that we spend in the next fiscal year, 12,252,000. Realistically, we'll probably spend less than that in the first year. And then the remainder of the grant we would pick up in the 2027, 2028 year. But keeping in mind, this is a spending limit for us. I decided I'll pick that number. I think it'll be less than that in the first year, but at least it's there. And then the planned reserve just becomes the difference between the total revenues and the total expenditures. So that's kind of a long-winded explanation, but that is the change to the budget because of the bond and the thought process that went into it.
So is there a time frame on the spending part of the state grant?
We have, well, not so much on the state grant. I believe for bond proceeds, we're supposed to spend, I believe, 85% within the first 3 years after bond issuance. And so I don't think that'll be a problem. This is a project that we want to get started on as soon as we can. With that said, there's definitely a lot of planning that goes into it, and we want to have community involvement, staff involvement, because we only get one chance to get this right, and we're determined to get this right. But with that, we do have that limit out there. And I will say too, we're going to try to, the first pot of money we're going to take is getting the state grant, because the nice thing is we can then be, if we have bond funds, I'd rather be earning interest on the bond funds,
Right,
and having the state pay down first. And so you just kind of get into cash flow management at that point, but we're going to try to do what we can cash flow wise so we can maximize our own interest earnings.
so when you come to decide when to issue the bonds, you'll come back to the board and for their approval to do that, or is that something you need to all take care of up front?
We will definitely be involving the board in that. There's going to be, one of the things we're probably going to have to update our investment policy for what we do with the proceeds before we pay them out. So there's going to be quite a bit of stuff that over, I would say, the next 9 months, we're going to be bringing to the board.
Good luck, board.
I'm gonna ask, is it the budget committee or the school board?
School board.
Mhm.
Do you have like a thought process on like, this is phase 1, this will be phase 2, phase 3 for all the projects you are wanting to accomplish?
I would say, and this is something, now that it's real, this is something that would be a good discussion to include the board in. Initially, and this is just me, really, I should be asking you this question, Rachel, because you're one of 9 board members that get to ultimately decide this. But, my thought is, we definitely, for some of the high school career tech, there's some work we can get started on that. The biggest part of this project will be the classroom portion of the high school. And my thought is, one of the things I want to make sure, one of, I guess, my goals would be that we design and build a facility that will be serving Sweet Home students well for, I'd like to think, into the next century. And I would hate to see us cut corners on that. And so I would like to see what that's going to get firm numbers on that. And then we'll see what's left over and then be able to have a better idea what can we do on the other projects. But, most important, make sure that we get the high school right and not end up in a place where, we have to, for example, it would be great to be able to have, polished concrete floors rather than you know,
Tile.
vinyl tile that will need to be replaced, or have a metal roof to match our existing metal roof, which will last a lot longer. But recognizing those come with higher costs, it's trying to balance all of that.
How can a bond cancel in others? What's the estimated? I think the bond will be issued.
I would,
Couple months.
I'm gonna say probably if we're looking at 2 series, I would say, you know, the one thing that could change this would be if there's a sudden change in interest rates and the, you know, it gets more favorable, but otherwise I would say we're probably looking at either late this year or early 2027 for the initial issuance, and then sometime after that for the larger remaining issuance.
Any more questions related to this bond impact? All right, we're moving along to a discussion. If there's anything you want to talk about, and if not, we can certainly entertain a motion to approve it, send this on to the school board. But we all had this document long enough to kind of review it.
I'll make a motion to approve this budget as presented.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You opposed, the same? So move. Thanks, everybody.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If I may. This is a master class on budgeting. And I wouldn't be doing my duty if I didn't acknowledge the expertise and prowess that Kevin has in this. He has been here,
Honestly.
he has been in our district. I think as long as you had been on the board previously. He knows this in and out. You see other districts that are struggling and grappling and having difficulties. If Oak Heights was a concert between the budgeting and financials that Kevin does, and the work that Josh Darwood does with his team, so kudos to Josh as well. That Oak Heights, that was big. And it was done over the summer. And so that was a concert. What we're looking at here is an orchestra. We're in on the very beginning of an orchestra, and a huge piece of that, and why I like working here, is I feel so fortunate, both that we have Kevin with his expertise, and Josh as well with what he can do with his crew. And so I really think we need to acknowledge that this is very high level. Kevin does it very, very well. So,
Good job,
Kevin.
It's a team effort. I mean, if we're making public comment here, I want to say, I mean, I am so thankful to live and send my kids to school here in Sweet Home. We're good. We've got it great. We are in a wonderful place, and you know, I'm thankful, and that's thanks to all of you and our entire community.
Well, like my sister, she's a teacher in Southern California, and she's at her charter school, and they laid off 15 teachers this year.
Wow.
We're trying to get her up here, but you know, it's not happening.
Right, any other closing comments? All right, thank you, everybody. Meeting's adjourned.
With that saying, next